Hi guys, my name's Connor. I'm a science fiction, political, and philosophy nerd, Marine Corps and law enforcement veteran, and today I have a treat for you. I break down the Twitch and YouTube political scene, alt media, punditry, and drama, and I got Hutch, who is a liberal, fighting a bunch of communists. It should be fun. I'm going to bring them onto the channel. I'm going to let them argue. I will be pausing intermittently in order to break it down from my perspective. Let's go.
I will
check the tapes on this. I can't wait to find records of you saying, "Oh yeah, Trump's going to get Mike Johnson confirmed in his first vote. He's going to get all of his cabinets picked. He is going to get the one big beautiful bill."
You go to war with Joe Manchin. You say, "I'm going to primary you, block you." Hold on, wait. Let's just hold on. I'm gonna your mom and I'm gonna primary you and we're gonna replace you, okay? And then he says, "You know what? I don't like this at all. I'm an independent. You guys don't get the majority. That's that."
So are you stupid? So the response, Manchin is not bullyable, is a response to your question is, why don't you bully? Okay,
that wasn't my fucking question.
Why don't you like Trump and bully?
It literally
was. The Democrats thought they could people and lie to them about, "Oh, we're actually fighting for $15 in minimum wage," or, "Oh, we're actually going to cancel your student loans," when they never had an intention of doing it. They rolled over immediately, so they lost and handed.
They never had the intention of doing student loans.
No, they did not.
Well, why did he do it?
Oh, the Republicans struck it down. That's what the Democrats always say.
No, the court struck it down, bro. What do you mean?
That's why we got to pack the court. So, Hutch, again, I agree with you. Biden's first 6 months more legislatively successful than Trump's, but hasn't Trump surprised you? I know he surprised me. I know he surprised a lot of people on Twitter when we're like, "Oh,
I need these glasses." They're very metrosexual liberal, but I need these glasses. Number one, because I'm blind. Number two, because I think they give you an aesthetic of being a thoughtful person. So I'm pausing already because we've already heard some of the line of argumentation. I'm telling you, the Vanguard boys, they make a point that I actually like 100% agree with. And then Hutch came back and counterpunched them, which I think you just have to keep in your analysis. It's actually really good argumentation. I don't want to spoil it too much, but expect the lefty freaks to seize early momentum and expect Hutch to have a good counterpunch.
They're not going to be able to get Mike Johnson confirmed as speaker. They're not going to be able to get this continuing resolution passed. They're not going to be able to get the one big beautiful bill done.
You believe that, Josiah? You really believe that?
And they have knocked one W after another. They have defied expectations. When it looked like Trump was down for the count, he squeaked a win.
No,
Who said he was down for the
count? That's not true. Wait, Josiah, that is so not true. Trump has, and this I think goes to Zach's point. He has a force of personality and is able to influence his members of Congress to do shit that that is against their interest, against their constituents' interest. You look, for example, I know you guys talk about Josh Hawley because I think I saw a video of you guys talking about Josh Hawley. Like, Josh Hawley puts a stake in the ground and says, no, on Medicaid, I'm not going to budge, and this is really important. This is really important, and he budges. And so, if you actually, Josiah, and I have to question you, if you actually thought they weren't going to be able to get Mike Johnson as speaker, you actually thought they weren't going to be able to pass a continuing resolution. That shit was baked in when they won the election, man, because Trump actually has that force of will.
Damn, I already pre-watched, so I'm cheating a little bit. Starhawk says, thoughts on Conflict 1947, thinking of starting? Well, I mean, obviously, I want you to do Warhammer 40K instead. However, it looks cool. I mean, I just Googled it. Looks like steampunk World War II. You know me. I like painting miniatures. I like war games. I like all that stuff. And so, effectively, this line of argumentation, I think Pisco's making it way too simplistic, and he's presuming that the right wing is easily squeaking out these wins. I don't think that's true at all. I think the right wing is expending a lot of energy and they're creating a lot of bad will amongst legislators. I do think that Trump is such a uniquely capable person of using the bully pulpit. That's the only reason why this is happening. I think that when Trump disappears, so does that cult of personality. But Starhawks, thank you for your donation. Jonazilla says, laughing emoji, I'm going to F your mom and I'm going to primary you. Yes, that is one of the peak moments of this debate, for sure.
They got it done the first time. They got it done. They got Mike Johnson confirmed on the first vote.
That's one way to spin it. That how long did that take? That took like how many votes to get that done?
Wait a minute. I think we all had. No, because I think we all had maybe there was one, maybe it was Pisco. I can't remember. I think we all had doubts that he'd be able to get his full cabinet confirmed. I think that. Well,
I had no doubts. No. I said everyone's
Pisco,
going to
like I said, maybe it was you who.
Maybe it was.
I'm
gonna go back and find out. By the way,
I thought there was going to be a sacrificial lamb.
Yeah,
I thought that somebody that was totally crazy. I'm not.
Right.
I'll be real about
I'm
that.
actually going to go back and check, Pisco, because you came in way too hot.
No. Check
No,
it.
don't worry. We'll check the tape.
No, I will.
Check
Yeah,
the
check it.
tapes on this. I can't wait to find records of you saying, "Oh yeah, Trump is going to get Mike Johnson confirmed in his first vote. He's going to get all of his cabinets picked. He is going to get the one big beautiful bill
I think
passed."
Pisco did, bro. I really do.
Absolutely
Don't fucking
did.
believe. That's okay. All right.
No,
Yeah, I mean, but
Also-
I think that to Josiah's point though, there was I think a general expectation that there would probably be more reins on Trump than or there'd be less reins on Trump than there have proven to been, I suppose, right? That he would probably have a little bit more problems getting various things done, and he's also, I think,
Believe that, Econoboi? You believe that? You
I think
an idiot? Are you
I think
sure?
there's also been.
Are you sure?
There's also been a lot of things.
I love this because Pisco is wildly abrasive and pisses everybody off by being so like, oh yeah, you fucking idiot. Ugh. I'm happy that Josiah is playing with it.
That Trump has done that I think probably did generally surprise people, like even political.
Sorry, I forgot to read the super chat. Christian Players for $20 says, take my money, enjoy the conflict. Also, who is Sick Rick? Dude seems like a Groiper Nazi. I have no idea who Sick Rick is. So, did he join the Discord? Is that what's going on? But thank you for the donation, King. Sincerely appreciated.
Commentators, like for instance, when it comes to things like just like completely shutting down entire government agencies, right?
Like the Department of Education,
USAID, Department of Education, right? And I think as well, like I think there was a Supreme Court ruling that came out. I think it might have been just today, actually, that said essentially, you can substantially cut these agencies or withhold funds. And who gives a about Congress? Essentially, originalist Supreme Court, quote unquote. Like, I think that that's a pretty surprising thing from most people's perspectives. And people have to adjust their priors, but there's something to be said, I think, about Trump's over performance, I guess, relative to his first term in a number of ways.
But it's a misrepresentation of the truth to suggest that Donald Trump just doesn't have to abide by the checks that people like Joe Biden did. Like you mentioned the parliamentarian, and I think you're like furthering this narrative that the Republicans get everything they want when they elect Trump, and then we elect Biden, he just throws scraps at us. That's kind of the narrative that you guys push, right?
Yeah, I stand by that. I think that his entire presidency, that's why he was a one-term president. Yeah, usually if you're a really successful president, you get 2 terms. He got 1 term.
Well, let's interrogate that a little bit. Do you guys?
I'm just going to say, for the sake of commentary, I don't necessarily agree with this. I feel like COVID was such a one-off incident that it totally tanked the economy, which is why Biden won, was because the economy was so smashed. And then I think why Biden lost was because the inflation lasted pretty much all the way up to election day. And so this, the economy had recovered, but it was very anemic. And so while people might have gotten raises, might have gotten better jobs, et cetera, they also saw, I mean, this is true for me and my family, we saw groceries double. And we didn't already have, or like 30%, 40%. So we didn't have a lot of spending money beforehand, and now spending money is exclusively going to bills. Like we thought it was bad 5-10 years ago when we didn't have a lot of spending cash. Now we don't have any extra at all. And that's because of the increase in cost of living. And then add on top of that, the housing market, the way the housing market is right now, if I was a Zoomer, I would be rioting. So yeah, like I feel like the economics, if economics are bad, whoever is in power gets voted out. It's just the way that it is. Otherwise, I do not think that Trump would be in office right now. Boom.
Blamed the Senate parliamentarian for the $15 an hour minimum wage.
No,
I don't
I
understand
blame
how you
Joe
reach
Biden
that
for
conclusion.
failing on one of his primary campaign promises to the American people, and the minimum wage in this country hasn't been raised since George Bush.
Well, what should he have done?
Fired the Senate parliamentarian.
What would that have accomplished?
There would have not been the person standing in the way of that issue. Another one would have cropped up, and I would have advised that he deal with it swiftly.
You still didn't have yes votes from either Sinema or Manchin.
Yeah, I think you can deal with that if you're the president of the United States. To Pisco's point, he expected every single one of those people to fall to Trump because Donald Trump will exercise power within the Republican
not
Party.
everybody
He will
did.
ruin you.
But not everybody
He'll make sure
did.
that you never work again. I think that Joe Biden could have done a lot more to put his thumb on the scale to get Joe Manchin.
Get into specifics. How is he going to pressure Joe Manchin?
Go to his district, hold a rally, talk about how this guy right here is standing in the way of you getting a minimum wage. Call it the minimum wage rally. Have 100,000 people show up. Have Bernie Sanders speak at it. Have every single person, have Kamala Harris speak. Bring out Barack Obama. If you can't have Michelle Obama speak there.
Sorry, what
get
state does he
AOC on the
serve
stage.
again?
This is how we're going to raise the.
It wasn't a district. It was a state. What state did he serve again?
West Virginia.
And then how did they vote in the last election? Do you know?
Yeah. Do you think that they would all vote for a $15 minimum wage? They would. We voted for a $15 minimum wage in my state of Missouri. And guess what? We also voted for Donald Trump, unfortunately. People are heterodox. Same thing happened in Florida, which is a Republican stronghold.
It's a Trump plus 40 state. Whatever leverage you think Joe Biden had in West Virginia, you are deluding yourself. Like, I just want to ask you,
that's because people don't show up to vote in West Virginia. Look at how many people are registered to vote compared to eligibility in West Virginia.
Can you simply accept that sometimes presidents are going to be constrained by the Congress, that it's not?
So somebody skipped ahead and actually made the point that Hutch is going to win on, in my opinion. So the Vanguard boys, I'm going to give them a little bit of credit up front, okay? Because what they're going to argue in the next like 5 to 10 minutes or whatever, and I need to get a water refill. I'm dehydrated as hell. What they're going to argue is that Democrats are uncomfortable using the bully pulpit, and so as a result, they don't. And so realistically, if there was something the Democrats want to get done, then they should be bullying Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema, which, by the way, I don't even know if those people are relevant anymore, but they should have been bullying their moderates. But to Mellow D's point, the Vanguard boys have no idea how any of this works. It was a 50-50 Senate, I think. Yeah, Mellow D, not just that. What Hutch is going to bring up is the fact that, okay, so you bully him through the pulpit in order to get the $15 minimum wage. The rest of your agenda is fucked. Because effectively what you said to this guy is, we're going to turn your own constituency against you, or try to. And we're also going to primary you in the next election. Well, you've lost leverage over that political operator. That political operator has every desire to stick their finger in your eye. And so as a result, with this close of a Senate, a 50-50 Senate, you can kiss the rest of your agenda goodbye. And so while I'm sympathetic to the Vanguard boys saying like Democrats get elected and then they don't even try, that's effectively their argument. I think that Hutch actually wins out logically, saying that you can kiss the rest of your agenda. It's gone. It's gone. So LB says Connor Biden didn't even try. Well, you'll like the Vanguard boys, LB. You'll like them. Grassroots for 20 says, hey, party people. What's up, buddy? Good to see you. Grassroots, I just want to tell you, you should be proud of chat. Okay, you should be very proud. We got donations from Christian Blaris, Starhawks, Melody, Sacred Snow, True Zealot, aka Abatasui, Starhawks again, and Andrew Giannakopoulos. They have been very kind in your absence. So I just want you to be proud. I want you to be proud of CGG. I want you to be proud of the COG.
Just as simple as them wielding the bully pulpit. Are you willing to concede that sometimes presidents don't get the things that they want?
How would we know? He didn't do that. He did not do that. He did not.
I am actually on the verge of passing out. So what I just summarized is effectively the next 5 to 10 minutes of argumentation. I'm going to go get some water. I'm going to plug in my phone. I'll be back in 2 minutes. I'm just telling you, I'm hurting a little bit. Fighting last night, taking care of the kids all day yesterday, and then fighting today. I'm just a little wiped out. So we're still going to engage in content. We're still going to get our 5 hours in. I'll be right back. But I desperately need water or else I'm going to die. Be right back.
Make a single effort. He stayed in his basement and he said,
he negotiated bills that he could get passed, and he didn't waste time fighting for something like firing the Senate parliamentarian that wouldn't have changed the outcome.
Bills to give a right-wing, watered-down infrastructure bill so he could claim victory after he rolled over completely. That's what happened.
I also think, as I was talking about earlier in the show, Joe Biden of 10 years ago absolutely would not have taken that bullshit from Joe Manchin. Are you kidding me? Do you know who Joe Biden is as a politician?
For the record.
Do you know who Joe Biden is as a politician? Because Joe Biden had actually been in... If he had
Hold on,
actually
can we
been in
go-
office when he, are you
Can
going to
we
let me
just-
finish the point?
Okay, sure. Go ahead.
Okay, because I can't focus with that either way. If you actually knew who the politician Joe Biden was from his previous era, he would not have allowed his signature piece of legislation to be embarrassed in the way that it was by the likes of Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema. He didn't even threaten to facilitate a primary against them. As soon as Thomas Massie starts talking shit on Donald Trump, Trump's tweeting about how they've already recruiting candidates to run against him. And with Joe Manchin, it's like, there may be some disagreements with this fine and honorable member of the caucus from West Virginia, and let's go talk about it privately like gentlemen. No, Zach is 100% right. You're the president of the United States. You go to his home state. You embarrass the shit out of him. Even though Biden's not very popular in West Virginia, you at least try. And there
Bernie
are
Sanders is.
and
Not
Bernie Sanders
very
is. You can bring out
popular.
people that are popular. Kentucky has a Democratic governor. It's not impossible to reach these people. They're not just like 100% Democrats suck. I hate all Democrats. Like, no, if you actually put it to them in a way that makes sense, these states, which by the way, within the last 75 years, were all blue states. Yeah, you can convince them to fight for something like minimum wage. You can convince them to take out their anger on this politician who's single-handedly holding that up. I don't know. I don't think it's that crazy to at least try. And that was another issue with Biden. His whole posture, he just exuded weakness. Trump exudes strength, specifically to his base, less and less with every passing day. I think he's kind of fading in that capacity. But for a while, he was a master at getting people in line and on message. He turned the entire party into a reflection of himself. You know what I'm saying? Like, Biden couldn't even pretend to try to do that. And again, it might have been
thing that
because
Donald Trump did when he was president. What was the first thing he tried to do legislatively?
In which term?
the
First
Obamacare
term.
thing.
The first.
Oh,
term.
you mean in the first term?
Yeah.
He passed a tax incentive for rich, and also he had
No,
to
no.
repeal and replace Obamacare. I don't
No,
know
no, the
which one
first
happened
thing,
first.
the first thing he tried to do was repeal and replace Obamacare. Was he successful?
No, John McCain stood in the way of it, but that was because they had a personal grievance. Okay, do you not remember the whole problem?
Do you think that
okay.
Donald Trump could have used the bully pulpit to force McCain to vote in the way that he wanted to?
I think that Donald Trump, if he had been a more deaf politician, would have absolutely gotten John McCain to go along with it. And if he hadn't said, I like the ones that don't get captured, and made fun of the man's military record, he would have absolutely gotten it.
Yeah, because
You
the
guys
thing
are
about Trump is that he
perfectly-
doesn't actually give a fuck about the actual policy. Like, he's never really been someone who cares that much about getting policies passed. It's a cult of personality. If he was a sophisticated politician, yeah, he
Sorry for being tardy to the party.
wouldn't have pissed off John McCain in that sort of way. Not that he totally didn't care about that, goal of repealing and replacing Obamacare. I'm not trying to seem like he didn't, but I don't think that he cares as much. That's not really his mission. Whereas Joe Biden should have been politically savvy enough to get those senators in line.
Okay. So I feel like, guys, you are perfectly exemplifying what the Green Lantern theory of politics is. The central premise of it is that neither of you seem to accept that the Congress can be a check on the president. Neither of you seem to accept that sometimes.
When did Joe Biden try to use the bully pulpit,
I let
right?
you
That's
talk.
what I'm
Hold on.
telling you. We advise
Let
that
me
he
speak.
should have.
I was speaking. I was
Okay,
nice
sorry.
to Gavin
Go
here.
ahead, Hutch.
Okay.
Okay,
Like,
right.
you guys seem to think that there's always going to be a way to force the people in Congress to give you the bills that they want. And the reality is literally every single president has been constrained by their Congress.
Never said
every
that.
single one.
I don't think that. That is not my position. I think that Joe
You
Biden should
don't
have
think that?
tried
What do you
harder.
mean?
I think he should have tried harder and used the bully pulpit more to shame the people that were preventing him from delivering on what the American voters voted him into the office to accomplish in the first place. To me, as someone who actually deeply cares about these policies, who cares about the public option that he never actually tried to do once he was in office, who cares about the $15 minimum wage, which he didn't even try to fight for once he was in office. Yeah, it actually pisses me off, and I want to see the president reflect the frustration of his base when it comes to those key issues, and to at least punish the members of the caucus that are they're disloyal and that embarrass the whole agenda in administration.
Do my podcast co-hosts have any opinions on
Yeah, I do. I mean,
pressuring
look,
Joe Manchin to get a $15 an hour minimum wage in West Virginia?
So what I'm okay and what I'm accepting from the Vanguard people is that Democrats are perceived to be quite anemic. So they have this like broad mandate of social reforms that they want to engage in, but once they get into office, they're always appealing to practicality for why they can't actually pass social reform. But once again, I'm just going to point out what Mello D pointed out, that Manchin was in such a precarious position that he actually had a huge amount of leverage in Democratic politics. Bo Dickerson says, for context, I believe Manchin had not only the highest approval rating in the Senate, but in the whole of the government at the time. Bullying Manchin would have been political malfeasance. Exactly. Melody says, okay, Hutch said it. Yeah. That's where I feel like the appeal is going to be with the Vanguard people for the way that you feel. But I think Hutch actually has relatively astute analysis. Leftists don't really think in long-term policy gains. Yeah, but they're effectively making the same argument that Stephen was making yesterday, which is Trump's winning. He's engaging poorly. Let's also engage in bad behavior so we can win too. That's effectively the line of argumentation. TL1524, thank you for the donation, King. For $5 for the brain rot you had to deal with last night. Not sure how in God's green earth you kept your composure like you did. You're a better man than I. That's actually funny. A lot of people are accusing me of spurging out. So, well, thank you, though. Corey Peltzman says good night. Good night, King. I think Corey is in Europe. So Corey has to go to bed sometimes when we're still streaming. Deus Halcyon for $5. Thank you, King. It's all or nothing with these leftists. Be normal and accept that you're not going to get every single one of your policies passed. Yeah. Yes. All right. Just quick show real quick. Everybody's been incredibly generous today. Thank you kindly. Really do appreciate it. It seems like you're rewarding my bad behavior from last night. But anyways, like the stream, share with your friends, watch the VODs, comment on the videos, super chats if you got them, memberships if you got them. You guys have already been insanely generous today. So thank you kindly.
I think
Go ahead,
that,
Econoboi.
I was just
No,
going to say, like, I think that these views are somewhat compatible. Like, I think that Hutch, I think where you're wrong is that, look, at the end of the day, like the Trump project, right, has been a long one at this point, right? It's been almost a decade long. By the time Trump, leaves, like,
Starhawks, just real quick. What panel was Connor on last night? It was a WIC panel, and it was against Destiny. And basically, I just yelled at Destiny to stop being such a freak about talking shit about dead kids and kids watching porn. And that was the crux of the debate from my perspective. Kyla was upset that Steven isn't being more optical, and she thinks that he's unnecessarily destroying relationships that could benefit his political project. Steven said, I don't care, it was funny, fuck off. And then Soy Pill said, bad behavior is being rewarded on the right, so we should also engage badly as long as we're winning. And actually, Steven said the same thing too. So, anyways.
Guess we'll see what happens. Fingers crossed. His last term in 2029, that'll have been Donald Trump leading the conservative movement in this country for 12 years, right? A very long time. And we see some of the fruits of that today, right? We see the consolidation of power within the court and the Supreme Court. We see, like Pisco said, the consolidation of power within the caucus, and he's able to essentially just dictate things to the caucus. And how did he accomplish that, right? It wasn't through, my friend John McCain or, the analogous thing that Joe Biden did with Joe Manchin. It's like, look, at some points, you have to try and make long-term decisions in the composition of the caucus. You're always going to have moderates and progressives, and those people are always going to disagree. Same thing with the Republican Party to some degree, but at the very least, I think it's probably worth it long-term to instill a kind of like coalition culture within the party and say, look, we ran as a party on $15 an hour minimum wage. I won that election. If you're against me, like, I don't care that you've been a senator from Delaware for, the last 20 years. Like, that's what the party believes in. That's what the base believes in, as evident by the election. And you're going to get primaried if you don't support it. And look, to the discredit of, some of Donald Trump's candidates that he endorses in the primaries, he's going to lose some of those elections, right? Like he ends up primarying candidates and they end up losing 100%. Otherwise winnable elections. But we see that in the long run, those global macro trends that kind of dictate who wins and loses a lot of these elections end up pulling through. And now Donald Trump has, larger majorities in the Senate. I don't know what the House looked like when he took office, but he's able to actually have consolidated that and get a lot of things that he otherwise didn't think he would be able to get done.
So we've already summarized the arguments. The question is, do any Democrats have that force of personality in order to reshape the party in their vision? Okay. Because Trump does. He reshaped I think to the country's detriment, he reshaped the party into his vision of what MAGA is. And so the question is, do the Democrats have somebody with a similar force of personality? And I don't think you guys do. I don't think you have a single person, because the Democrats have to build a coalition. They have to be representative of Black moderates and Black progressives. They have to be representative of Hispanic moderates and Hispanic progressives. They have to be representative of gay people and trans people and white progressives and white moderates. And so trying to build a coalition amongst all those fractal groups, I think, is infinitely more difficult than what the Republicans have to do. Republicans have to basically say Christian and predominantly white, but then also we will accept, well, you know, Black people, Hispanic people, Asian people, Indian people who support our agenda. So, you know, well, like I think that the right-wing coalition building is infinitely easier than left-wing coalition building.
Econoboi, do you think that Joe Manchin, he was going to be threatened by a primary?
Well, Hutch, you're completely disregarding my point. Okay,
no, I'm not. What do you mean?
No. My point wasn't that you could get Manchin to change his mind. Manchin didn't even run for re-election. He left the Democratic Party. He was independent when he retired from the Senate. Like, I don't know that there's substantially anything that you could have done. I think to the Vanguard's point, you know, there's probably something to be said about at least like the appearance of giving a and like trying.
Which was a huge part, which, by the way, was a huge thing that led to Trump's re-election, was the fact that everyone felt like Joe Biden was asleep at the wheel, that he was feckless, that he was too old.
Anonymous chatter says, what about Gavin Newsom? What about him? No, he's positioning himself for a run, but is his weird California bougie corporate, you know, HR speak, is that something to coalesce the party around? I don't know if it is.
To whip his own caucus into line when it mattered.
Yeah,
that's why he lost. That's why we have Trump.
That
Joe Biden didn't even fight for the American people.
No,
what you're saying doesn't mean anything. When you say something like
what do you mean it doesn't mean anything?
When you say just use the bully pulpit, you're not suggesting anything.
No. He just said something very specific.
Okay,
yeah, go for it.
Okay, here's what I was going to say, because this is my point, Hutch, right? Like, I don't want to miss the forest for the trees just because we want to like have good fireworks show for the audience, which I'm totally into, by the way. We're all crushing. But the reality is that the point that we're making, and I think Econoboi, I thought you laid it out extremely well, right? The American people do not believe that the Democratic Party is full of fighters, right? Gavin used the term asleep at the wheel. The reality is that the reason they couldn't get Kamala Harris or Joe Biden across the finish line was because they did not even try to whip votes in West Virginia, from West Virginia, right? They didn't even try to say, okay, we're going to go down to Arizona.
They didn't even make it feel like they cared about $15 an hour. No one even knew that. You think any of those voters in West Virginia even knew that Biden gave a about $15 an hour? No, because he didn't. That's the problem. He never even pretended to care, other than to get a few suckers' votes.
Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. Does everybody agree?
I have my own issues with $15 minimum wage. I feel like minimum wage is a fucking band-aid on this issue, which is effectively you're creating an artificial price floor, and minimum wages actually benefit corporations more than bringing back unions do. If I could, I would actually eliminate unions. Well, not eliminate unions. I would eliminate minimum wage and I would bring back unions. I think there's a Nordic country that did that. A Nordic country with no minimum wage. Several Nordic countries do not have a national minimum wage, including Denmark, Sweden, Finland, Norway, and Iceland. Instead, these countries rely on collective bargaining agreements between trade unions and employers to determine wages. These agreements often set minimum wage levels for specific sectors and occupations. This, I think, is an infinitely better model. This is an infinitely better model because you got people want to be EMTs, right? They want to be emergency medical technicians because it's a cool job. You get to ride in the back of an ambulance. You get to help people when they're sick or injured. You get to use stabilizing medicine in order to get people to the hospital. But in the United States, because emergency medicine is oftentimes privatized, it's a question of who gets there first, the fire department or the EMTs, on who does the stabilization work. But then EMTs almost always do the transportation. But because EMTs are oftentimes private businesses, particularly in Florida, they pay their workers minimum wage. So they get paid, you know, $7, $8, $10 an hour. And because the job is so cool, plenty of people are willing to accept dog shit wages in order to do a very cool job. But for me, that should be something that is 100% representative by a trade union that talks about how expensive the education is, talks about how, the challenges with standard of living, talks about the liability issues related to working in emergency medicine, and then get those people decent wages. I think EMT should be paid the same as firefighters or paid the same as cops. So, and the only reason why cops have a decent wage with decent benefits is through collective bargaining in the public sector. So, yeah, if I could, I would 100% eliminate minimum wage and incentivize unionization. Well, QC John says, was I reading too much into the Destiny comment last night that he now only cares about no matter, as him saying his goals are not the same as yours and Kyla? Yeah, I do think we have differentiating goals. I think Steven is black-pilled because of how toxic the atmosphere around him has been. I think he's black-pilled about how much of an electoral effect he can have. So he will have whatever effect he can, but he's not going to walk on eggshells in order to do it. And so what I'm saying is he has enough money, power, and clout that if he cares about what's going on, he can be wildly effective. Yes. And then you said, well, QC John only cares about winning. I mean, I think that was the crux of the argument right there as well, was he said, I will engage in any bad behavior as long as it results in us winning. Now, he can walk that back. He can say like, oh, it was just the heat of the moment. You were pissing me off, et cetera, et cetera. But he said it. So I think there's an underlying motivation of the right wing gets to act poorly and win. I'm going to act poorly and see if we can win as well.
Agree here that generally speaking, in the modern era, what the American voters typically do is if they give a trifecta to a particular party, they take it away 2 years later. It has basically been, this has been
because the party abuses their fucking trust.
Patsimo says, I wouldn't hate unions as much if they didn't steal dues to give the politicians. 100% corruption is something that you have to guard against with trade unions, 100%. But that doesn't mean that it's not better than what we currently have.
And doesn't do anything. That's why. If Biden had actually done the things that I wanted him to, he would have.
I'm just giving you this is what happens with voters.
LB says, Connor, you know what else Denmark has? Socialism. No, it doesn't. It doesn't have decommodification of basic human needs, and it doesn't have workers owning the means of production. Nice try, LB.
Right. So in that time, when a president,
not just as a natural,
when a president is inaugurated, they know they're on a ticking clock, and they only have a couple years to pursue as much legislation as they can get done. And to Josiah's point, but you may not like the final version of those bills, but Biden was legislatively the most successful president of the modern era since like LBJ. Now you want to quibble about like $15 an hour. Would it have been better if he spent more time on a useless fight?
Hutch, you're talking about this like he won re-election, though. You're talking about this like he won re-election.
Senator, wouldn't it have been him better to just get done what he could get done before he loses Congress? Like that's the argument. You can't simply say. Vaguely, you can't simply say like just go to West Virginia, send AOC to West Virginia. Who gives a
Dude,
fuck?
have you not seen she's been on a Fight the Oligarchy tour and it's been massively successful? Let me talk for 1 second about this, guys. I was just in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I was in Tulsa, Oklahoma doing a segment for the Vanguard where I went to one of the Fight the Oligarchy tours, right? You guys ever been to Tulsa, Oklahoma?
Never.
No.
Okay, it is not exactly liberal country, okay? It's not the kind of place where they're tuning into podcasts that are woke. Okay, guess what that room was filled with? It was filled with people who wanted to see socialism. They loved AOC, and they were union guys.
Cringe. Oh, I'll DM the Vanguard guys. I'll figure it out. Decommodification of basic human needs and workers owning the means of production. I could go on a 5-minute rant about why I think it's totally antithetical to the human condition, but I don't want to waste your time. I'll waste theirs later.
That were fixing airplanes. They were farmers. They were teachers. There were tons of indigenous folks that showed up. Oklahoma has a huge indigenous population that's underrepresented. If you were to ask a pollster like Ezra Klein, he would tell you not to waste your time in Oklahoma. But you know what Bernie Sanders said to those people? He said, I do not want to be a part of a government that sees red and blue states. I want to be a part of a government that leads, that delivers for the American people. When I went to the U.S.
Yeah, do you know what Biden said? Is I don't want to govern over red states or blue states. I want to govern over the United States of America. I don't know why that sounded like Nixon, but Obama said the same shit, man. Like, listen, it's good rhetoric. I like it. It makes me proud to be an American, but every politician says that shit. That's not unique to Bernie Sanders.
Senate, I said I was going to stand up for the United States of America. That's what I'm here to do today. And people were losing it, man. They couldn't believe that somebody actually showed up for them. You're telling me that if you put on national television, Bernie Sanders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Kamala Harris, Beto O'Rourke, take your pick.
Him mentioning Beto O'Rourke right there makes me think, didn't Beto lose? Has Beto ever won? Beto to me is like colon cancer. Like, I know that Democrats like him because he's young and handsome and can speak in front of a camera. Did Beto O'Rourke ever win a position? Beto O'Rourke won several elections during his political career. He was on the city council, the House of Representatives. He did win Congress in 2012, defeating a 16-year incumbent. That's impressive. Okay, that's cool. He narrowly lost to Ted Cruz in 18. He tried the presidential in 20. He tried the gubernatorial and lost. So he's lost 3 elections. Last time he won was 2012. And by the way, this is like, not only is that 13 years ago, that yes, we're going to take your AR-15s comment. This, anytime you run this guy, this is getting played on repeat in every conservative district possible. Beto O'Rourke, yes, we're gonna. It's literally the top thing. It's literally the top thing. I didn't even have to type it in all the way. Let's just watch this.
If the high impact, high velocity round, when it hits your body, shreds everything inside of your body because it was designed to do that, so that you would bleed to death on a battlefield, not be able to get up and kill.
What do you think bolt action rifles do, Beto? You fucking idiot.
One of our soldiers. When we see that being used against children. And in Odessa, I met the mother of a 15-year-old girl who was shot by an AR-15. And that mother watched her bleed to death over the course of an hour because so many other people were shot by that AR-15 in Odessa and Midland. There weren't enough ambulances to get to them in time. Hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15, your AK-47. We're not going to allow it to be used against our fellow Americans anymore.
Yeah, fuck you, dude. Fuck you. You know, I'm not voting for you. I'll never vote for you. You could literally have him, like, he would need to come out and pretty explicitly disavow this position for me to vote for this guy. I'm telling you, the fact that Kamala was like, ban assault weapons like 60 days before the election, it was a problem. It was an actual problem for moderates. What was the hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15. Hell yes, we're going to take your AK-47, blah, 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 blah. Okay, yeah. Virginia Tech shooter, weapons. This guy killed 32 people, and he had a 9mm Glock 19 and a 22 caliber P22, and I think he killed 32 people. How many people died in Virginia Tech? 33. This guy, so when you take away the AR-15s, when you take away the AK-47s, and Sung Hwak Cho, or whatever the fuck this guy's name was, runs around and kills another 30 to 50 people with a pistol, what are you going to do? You're going to take away that shit too, right? So the reason why any anti-gun control person is not going to vote for that person is because we know you're not going to stop there. You're not going to stop with the assault rifles. You're not going to stop with the high capacity magazines. You're not going to stop with any of that shit. You're going to go for everything. Eventually, we'll be left to lever actions and muskets. We'll actually just have black powder muskets, and that's what we'll be left with. So yeah, you're not getting my vote. Not getting my vote. Anyways, Somebody did a super chat and I love them for it. Hearshot says, didn't they put him down after losing 3 times? I think so. Christian Blair says, Beto is the dude from Family Guy that turns his chair around when talking to high schoolers, lol. Yeah. No way. No way. No way. This is fucking Beto. He walks into the room, he turns the chair around, and then he sits on it. Yes! Yes, bro. Yes. Oh, that's a fire meme. Sorry. I'm trying to. So much of the Counterpoints streams have been heated recently. I'm trying to be chill, you know. I'm trying to have fun. That was funny as fuck. All right. Silver Jacket Man for 20 says, in sociology, there's actually a term called get to Denmark used in the context of how does X country get to Denmark because they're number 1 in nearly every social index stat there is. Yeah, seriously. Like, and by the way, I don't mind, but you know, with Denmark, I think that they have an above average socially productive society. They don't really care about the high tax rate, or at least substantive portions of them don't. And I don't know what their gun laws are like. I'm sure their gun laws suck, but Denmark labor force participation rate, 64%. That's actually not that much higher than the United States. I think the United States is around 62. I think Sweden was higher. Sweden at one point was in the 70s. It was crazy. Force participation rate. Yeah, in Sweden, the labor force participation. What's up? He did? I love you. Yeah? Yeah, it's a fan. Oh, that's so sweet. Yeah. So anyways, the point is that Scandinavian labor force participation rate is minimally higher, but also in some cases like Sweden, substantively higher. Yeah, so Sweden with a vigorous free market plus guns, I would accept. But then LB says that's socialism, but these countries don't have the decommodification of basic human needs or workers owning the means of production. And to my knowledge, they're not on the way to a communist society where they're trying to create a moneyless, stateless, classless society. And then also, I think there's a problem with the birth rate, where I think their birth rate is very low. Denmark birth rate, 1.55. Okay, well, I mean, they're in line with the rest of the civilized world. I think the United States is around there. United States birth rate. We're slightly higher. Okay, yeah, that's cool. I'm down with that. We just need to get the birth rate higher, and then we can copy Denmark's economic model, and then we can add guns, and then I'm happy. True. All right, anyways, sorry. So thank you for the donation, King. I'm just going to thank everybody again. Silver Jacket Man, Deus, TL1524, Grassroots, Christian Blair, Starhawks, Melody, Sacred Snow, True Zealot, aka Badasui, Starhawks, and Andrew Gia Canopoulos. I'm just going to say, you guys are kind of incentivizing me to engage in bad behavior, because over the past 24 hours, I screamed at Steven, screamed at Kyla, told people to shut the fuck up, woke up, watched Gladiator with my friend, talked about the drama from last night, and then started moving into the normal content we normally do. But we've gotten more donations because I think everybody is more fired up. So you're basically telling me, hey, Cotter, even if I argue with you in chat, please go yell at people in Twitch and YouTube politics, which can be accommodated. I'll make that happen for you, you know, since you're asking me with your dollary dues.
Famous people, Gavin Newsom from the party, they all show up to West Virginia, whoever it is that you can get. I'm not saying all these people would agree, but a lot of them would agree, because everybody loves to have their picture taken with the president, and they would have shown up, and it would have been a huge event, and it would have shown the American people that Joe Biden was going to fight for them. Sometimes optics matter. That would have been a time that optics matter. I'm not saying it would have worked. I'm saying the American people would have been like, yeah, Joe, thank you for showing up for us, which you've never done over the time you're president.
You need Manchin. It's in a 50-50 Senate. You need Manchin's vote for literally every single piece of legislation that you want to get done. And you're saying that the very first thing he should have done is gone to civil war with Joe Manchin and threat.
This is where Hutch is going to bring up the point that, frankly, I agree with the Vanguard boys that Democrats need to be more aggressive, coalesce around a leader if they want to win, coalesce around a leader and push an aggressive agenda. I agree with that. Hutch is about to own them in the marketplace of ideas, though.
In the primary, because we didn't get one particular provision.
I mean, is that not what
in
Trump
ARP.
does with the defectors in his caucus? Like, is that not? Is that
Do we
not
really
what
want to emulate? Like, do you want a Republican, like a
I wanna
Democratic Party?
win.
Well, wait a
I
minute.
personally-
I think that
I think
elides the
that-
point. Well, wait a minute. I think you got to address this, and it goes all the way back to. I've been spending the last 30 minutes trying to look for what Pisco had to say about Mike Johnson's first vote, and I can't find the goddamn thing. That motherfucker. There's nothing on it. Fuck you, Pisco. But listen, I think it elides the point that they're making, which is it doesn't matter if you want people to emulate Trump or not.
Sorry, Cameron Mosley is arguing about Denmark. You know why? Because they're socially and ethnically homogenous. They trust each other more. Sure, but we should brainwash Americans through the public education system into loving their neighbors and working towards the benefit of all of American society. I like a free society. I like liberty. I am a liberal in the capital L sense, in the fact that I think that governments that prioritize maximizing human liberty fare infinitely better than authoritarian regimes. Okay. However, I think that there are exceptions in society that the government needs to bolster, one of those being education. And during the educational phase of 0 to 18 in a kid's life, they need to be taught to be pro-social, how to handle violence, how to handle challenges, how to pursue academics, how to pursue their career, how to build a family, how to do this, how to do that. They don't just need to be academically educated. They also need to be morally educated, and they need to be integrated into a community. And that community needs to be the United States of America. And it needs to be based on certain principles, like freedom of speech, freedom of conscience, right to self-defense, and limited government, or government limited by the Republic, the Republican Constitution. Fernando Souza says, if Democrats want to go that route, they should just unironically do some buybacks, steal those old unused guns your 80-year-old grandfather has and sell them to the government for tax deduction. I still think that's cringe. Yeah. Yep. Fellas, is it gay to inhale? I think so. I think that's what I just did. I think I'm a little bit more gay for breathing. Christian Blair says, $5. I did appreciate you telling Gibbs you'd end his bloodline. With the vasectomy, to be clear, I don't want to kill Gibbs, but I do want him to get a vasectomy so he doesn't further pollute the gene pool. Yeah. Well, you said don't forget to shrink your size down to a manageable size like Denmark, but what's Denmark's population? Excuse me. Denmark population is 6 million. Jesus Christ. States by population. Yeah, I mean, I think we could do it though. Look at this. So this is a population list top to bottom. California, Texas, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Illinois, New Jersey, North Carolina. But after that, we get down to states that are less than 6 million. So we have Wyoming, West Virginia, Missouri, Kansas, Alabama, Iowa, South Dakota, Idaho, Louisiana, Minnesota, New Mexico, Massachusetts is around Denmark. And I think they actually have a multi-payer universal healthcare system. Oklahoma 4.0. Yeah, dude, it's possible. You would need to administer it at the state level. That's all.
They're making the case that it is possible for presidents to bully their parties into line.
Yes.
It's called whipping
I want
votes.
you to deal, so Hutch, I do want you to deal with the Trump example. Either refute it or say yes, but that's Trump.
Well, it's West
and we
Virginia.
can't do.
It's West Virginia. So can I step in? I want to say
No, you. Man, let Hutch respond
Why
to
are
that.
you flip-flopping when you were agreeing with me when we had the same conversation with Tyler Crystal?
Bro,
you're flip-flopping because your Vanguard boys are on the podcast.
Yo,
man, I'm about to listen.
Sorry, Christian Blair brings up something funny. Isn't Denmark the country in which their gangs throw hand grenades at each other because they lack pistols? Yes, but their homicide rate is substantively lower because they throw hand grenades at each other. Apparently, I thought it was fireworks. I thought that maybe there was a translation issue where fireworks were being reconstituted as grenades. Apparently not. Apparently, there's a bunch of Eastern European grenades that got snuck into Denmark. And so the gangs there, you know, the way that Americans do drive-by shootings, Danes, well, let's be real, they're probably Middle Eastern and North African Danes, but Danish gangsters and Middle Eastern and North African immigrant gangsters, their version of a drive-by is throwing a hand grenade through a window.
I'm about to roundhouse kick Pisco. He already has the beard off. I'm going to take the mustache off the next time I see him. And then
Based.
And you and I,
Christ, guys.
Hutch, listen, you're so tall, I'm going to kick the shit out of your ankles. Listen to me real quick.
See, Hutch, there's a W right there. I'm 5'7". So, you know, whenever, if I've ever hurt your feelings, you just fall asleep at night knowing that you know,
I know, man. Us short people. I know. He's like 6'4". I know.
Let me stop you.
agree.
Let me stop you. Okay. You go to war with Joe Manchin. You say, I'm going to primary you. Block. Hold on. Wait. Let's just hold on. I'm going to your mom and I'm gonna primary you and we're gonna replace you, okay? And he says, you know what?
You don't even know where her urn is.
Biden now polling at 100%.
Hold on. And then he says, you know what? I don't like this at all. I'm an independent. You guys don't get the majority. That's that. What do you do?
Hard to bully Manchin.
Okay.
Hard to bully Milton. I want to agree with
What do you do?
Would you just let me get through the fucking thing? Just shut up and let me get up and let me get through the sentence.
So I was Googling Denmark grenade crime, and then people were like, no, that's Sweden, that's Sweden, that's Sweden. And then it said 3 Swedish men aged 15 to 20 were arrested throwing grenades in Denmark. So the only Denmark grenade crime is Swedes. And let's face it, let's see if there's any pictures of the Swedes. No pictures of the Swedes. Let's be real. They're probably from the Middle East and North Africa. Did they release the names? The 17 and 19-year-olds detained in early October allegedly threw 2 hand grenades at a site run 100 meters from the embassy. The blast caused damage to the patio of a nearby building, but did not result in injury. The names of both teens who deny any wrongdoing remain unreleased. Yeah, I wonder why. I wonder why. Do you think they're Swedish names? Deus Halcyon for 5. Thank you, King. It's about population density. Denmark is tiny. For relatively small infrastructure costs, they can service the entire population. Sure, I agree, but a lot of administration nowadays is digital. So yes, you're right that there's challenges to administering, like let's say medical services. There's challenges to administering medical services in rural areas. I agree completely. I think we can meet those with technology. It's not impossible. Yeah. Damn Vikings. Yeah, the Vikings. The techno Viking. The techno Viking is running around with hand grenades, throwing it at Danes. You guys might be so young. You know, I'm almost 40. You guys might be so young, you might not even know Techno Viking. There's this video. This went viral in like 2005, you know? And it's just a bunch of like ravers in the early thousands. And they start walking down the street together. And then this dude, friggin', he just like takes over the music video, walking down the street, dancing as he's walking. It's awesome. Like, somebody needs to get an AI generator and they just need to find that news story. I can't do this because I'm too lazy to do it, but they need to take that news story of like Swedish man accused of throwing grenades at Israeli embassy in Denmark. And then you just need to take this video, and every time his hands go up while he's dancing, there just needs to be grenades flying in different directions and exploding off screen. Like grenade, 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 grenade. That'd be a dope meme. I don't have the time or the energy.
All right, Pisco wants to talk.
Shut up for a second. I agree with you that Joe Manchin was not bullyable. I want you to address the notion. They brought up Trump. And I can't speak for
Oh, it's Swedes for sure. Trump Whoppers, Swedes.
For Pisco,
Josiah, are you stupid? So the response, Manchin is not bullyable, is a response to your question is, why don't you bully? Okay,
that wasn't my f***ing question.
Why don't you be like Trump and bully?
It literally was.
You're like,
Yeah,
why?
We can go back and play the tape where I said your point belies theirs. I said they are saying that a president can theoretically bully a party. I want you to address
what
that.
my position is, just because I think I think you guys are splitting hairs here, right? Because I think that it's fair to address what Hutch is saying, right? Which is the fact that Joe Manchin might say, "You then, I am eat a bag of dicks," and go. But here's the thing: the American people are tired of getting crumbs, right? They already expect you to kind of be like, "Okay, the Republicans beat us, blah blah blah." You have to find a way to win. So you get on. Say you get on your infrastructure bill, right? You get Joe Manchin doesn't vote for it. Do you not see what Donald Trump has proven that you can do without Congress? You say, guys, give me 2 more years. Okay, or however long Joe Manchin had left. He's, I guess,
But I think the ultimate problem is not so much Biden's treatment of Joe Manchin, but it's the fact that he didn't even seem like he cared about the policy in the first place. We're talking about these policies that he's supposed to be fighting for, but no one even knows he supports them. Like I said, he'd have a lot better chance of getting reelected and of being popular if people felt like he gave a fuck about this, if they felt like it was actually something on his agenda.
That is insane, exponential. But somebody also just did a dodo as well. So Christian Valeris, thank you for your 5. Merch idea after the IRA Lucky Charms leprechaun, 100%. I'm writing that down and I'm going to DM it to my artist. So number 1, let me write that down. Swedish grenade attacks, techno Viking, and then exponential entropy. Holy shiznit. Okay. I watched you all week, so this is only fair 100. Holy shit, brother. Thank you kindly. Thank you kindly. I mean that from the depths of my heart. So you guys are basically incentivizing me to engage in horrific behavior. We had Andrew Starhawks, aka True Zealot, Sacred Snow, Mellow D, Starhawks again, Christian Valeris, Grassroots, TL1524, Deus, Silver Jacket Man, Christian Valeris again, Deus again, Christian Valeris again, and then Exponential Entropy with $100. Holy shit! Thank you, King. I'm. It might not sound like I might sound a little deadpan. I'm tearing up a little bit. I actually have a little tear in the corner of my eye right here. So thank you, honestly. All right, back to the brain damage.
Not something that can conveniently hit the cutting room floor as soon as he runs.
Oh, yeah. So Connor D says more ending bloodline threats. Pow, pow, pow. Yeah. I'm going to have to ask you guys, because you guys have all donated. So all the people who donated, please tell me why, right? Is it breaking stuff down and being insightful? Is it being funny and crazy and making crazy memes like the techno Viking grenade shit? Is it the community? Is it fighting people in schizo debates and screaming at people? What is your, I'm going to keep watching the content, but why do you like this community is why I'm asking. I know why I like it, and it's all of the above, but I'm asking you.
To any sort of obstruction from his own party. And that's exactly how it felt. It felt like Joe Biden was more than happy to use that as an excuse to say, oh, sorry, guys, what do you want me to do? The thing I promised to do is now on the cutting room floor because of these things that I knew would be an issue before I promised it. So it's like, why the you even promise it? Just to lie to everyone and get their hopes up? You knew this would be a problem.
If you didn't run on it, you'd be like, why aren't you running on it?
No, I'd rather he be honest. I genuinely would rather he be honest. I would. And I voted for politicians who aren't running on it. I voted for Kamala Harris, even though she was running on a bunch of shit that I hated, including going around talking about how all the #1 CEOs and corporation leaders in the company signed off on all of her stupid crypto policies and all her AI bullshit. Like, at least she was honest about it. I don't actually think that it's a good idea, though, to run for something or, win a primary based on these ideas, including a public option and a $15 an hour minimum wage, things that would substantially uplift Americans who desperately need it, and then immediately say, sorry, oops, some bullshit happened, and now I have to throw you under the bus and renege on this promise.
You don't seem to fully appreciate the role of the Congress. Period. End of story.
No,
You
like I just
don't
said, though, he
seem to-
didn't even
no.
try to make, like with various politicians that understand this issue, they know that, and they build a pressure campaign to make it so that it's political suicide for you to oppose this policy. Joe Biden.
You guys haven't answered my question. Is it yelling at Steven? is that why you're rewarding me? What am I being paid for? I try to be entertaining. I try to be smart. I try to be insightful. I try to be a decent person. I try to respond to chat. But yeah, I'm asking, what are you paying for? Right? And then for this point, I'm actually with the Vanguard bros here, just real quick, because it seems like they're saying, say what you do what you say, right? And we don't expect our politicians to do that. And I appreciate the gamesmanship that Hutch is appealing to. I actually think Hutch has a more finger on the pulse understanding of what happens with mundane electoral politics once they get into DC. However, I think that's why people are sick of the DC politics. They fucking hate that every policy proposal has to go through 10,000 different committees in order to even get proposed as legislation. They just want people to propose good legislation and then back it. It seems childishly naive, but in some ways it shouldn't be. Anonymous chatter says, Cotter, imagine if you made a tweet about drowning kids, you'd be a millionaire. I know, right? Whatever 4690 says, I gave you my 15 because you should be paid for your efforts, especially with the comments. Thank you. I actually do care about engaging with my chat, regardless of whether or not I get a lot of money for it. Kay with the 10 Canadian. Thank you, Kay. Another foundation of the community. If I lose you, I'll be asking myself what I did wrong. Judah Nitopsky for another 10, thank you, says, enjoy your content, watching while on my lunch break, last day until I'm on paid family leave. Also, the Emperor protects. Indeed, he does. Thank you, King. I'm going to read a few more of these because this is actually important for me for community engagement. I kind of want to diagnose. I know what I'm about. I want to know what you guys are about. Razzle Smasher says, I came back because you're to my right, but still have solid takes. It helped me not be in an echo chamber. However, I'm often surprised how much we agree. Great people here, too. True. We actually have a pretty cool community. Deus Halcyon says, it's all of the above. It's the fact that you put words to my thoughts. Whether I agree with you or not, your reactions are real and human. Okay. Sacred Snow says, I don't know because I like your morals, personality, honesty, and because you like the cool, nerdy hobbies I like. Based. Melody says, just enjoying the content and interested in hearing your views. All the other stuff too, of course, but want to contribute. Okay, well, then I'm just, guys, and I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. Like what I'm hearing is there isn't a specific reason why today has been particularly fruitful. It's just keep grinding the way that we've been grinding. That's what I'm hearing. So Razzle Smasher says, yelling at Steven is also top tier content. That Men in Black argument was low key one of the best debates of the year. Good. Fashion 40 says, though I can't donate big as often, I watch your content because you give a real human observation. You stick by your morals. You also yell at people. Okay, cool. All right. Starhawk says, I support several channels that forward what I think are messages in politics that the country needs right now, a classical masculine liberalism that tempers the extremism. Okay. Cameron Mosley likes geopolitics. True Zealot, you fuckwit. I told you I paid you because you're actively fighting degeneracy. True. Kay says, we just like you and enjoy the content and want you to succeed. Thank you. Razzle, Hutch was the grounded sane one here. Pisco is drifting to the left. He is. Econoboi has drifted even further, and it seems like Josiah is trying to split the difference. He is. That's why I need to go on the show routinely so I can bully the fuck out of them and drag them back center. Sapient, thank you for your donation as well for my favorite ASMR. You're welcome, King. Brian says, where can I find the Discord? I'll link it momentarily. All right. LB says, you're a good dude, Connor. Anyone can see that, and I'm here. Okay. All right. We can end the glazing session. I just wanted to make sure, like, if I didn't ask that question, then I would think that arguing with Steven last night had spiced up the chat, and what I should do is go find people that I don't hate necessarily, but I should go find more spicy conversations. And I probably will, just to vary the content a bit compared to the React Andy shit. However, I also don't want to drift so far down that lane that I basically wake up every morning, kind of like Steven did a few years ago, and I'm like, who can I fight today? Who can I make look like an idiot today? Who can I yell at today? Because I'm sure that's exhausting too. So it's good as like something to break up the content, but I don't want to be financially so driven into that I ignore everything that makes this community special and makes the content special. Rick Stone says, I want to see you not so erudite and PF Young do a religion about religion in the AI future and who it can bring both sides stream. Death Guard equals best faction. Yeah. Yeah, I actually think that would be really good because erudite is a Christian, which makes no sense to me, but that's okay. She actually has her roots of her faith are actually pretty deep. But she oftentimes, whenever you challenge her on a literal interpretation of the Bible, she kind of says, well, I don't care if you think it's true. This is what I think is true instinctively. With PF Young, though, I am curious what his religious views are because obviously he likes Jung shit. Absolutely. Let me write that down. I'm going to write that down as collaborators because I actually wrote down a segment for that. Straight Array Vanguard Dev, erudite, and Jung. Nice little 3-person debate. And then Grassroots with 100 says, just asserting my dominance. Thanks. Thanks for asserting your dominance. It's appreciated. Conserve says, I'm not donating, so I withheld my 2 cents, but I'd wager it's not about being combative. It's about holding your ground and standing for something. Okay, cool. And by the way, like, it's not like I'm only interested in people who are donating. I'm just trying to I'm vibe checking. I'm just vibe checking the community. That's all. Thank you. Thank you for everyone. Appreciate it.
Didn't do that with the right policies.
It is
he did it with the
delusional.
wrong ones and bungled the ones that he was right about, like the Afghanistan war.
It wasn't even just Manchin. Like cinema was. Pisco, I know you wanted to jump in.
Yeah, I just want to say I'm going to be a bridge builder here for sure, 100%, because I'm going to yell in kind of both directions. On the one hand, you can't bully Manchin, but I think that there's a kind of lesson from the Inflation Reduction Act. Everyone said that the environmental policy that Biden was trying to push was dead in the water. They said it for months and months and months and months. The Inflation Reduction Act was a surprise for a lot of people. And I think give Biden some credit. I think that that's an incredible package in terms of now it's being diluted and somewhat destroyed by Trump and the big beautiful bill.
Election, Pisco. That's the problem.
No, I agree with you that. I think that's Biden's greatest failure is, and this
The
is where
presidency has to be an 8-year project in the year 2025, is my view. So I think that if you
100%.
fail the first time with Joe Manchin, you have to dedicate your entire presidency to fucking him and replacing the seat.
100%.
Wait, 100%. You just said you couldn't bully Manchin.
Whoa. So 100% on the notion. I don't know why you're so triggered, Hutch. So first of all, I was defending your that you can't bully Manchin, but on the notion, on the specific notion that the presidency is an 8-year project, that is 100% true. I totally agree with that. That's what I said. 100% agree with it. Hutch, do you have a problem with me saying I agree with that point?
No, you're good.
Okay, cool. So just to be clear, I totally agree. You can't really bully Manchin. It has to go. You have to go.
You have to primary him. That's why it's an 8-year project.
But I will say the following: to pretend.
Which, by the way, the reason why Hutch is shaking his head is because Manchin is like a blue dog conservative Democrat. He's effectively a relic from the middle of the 20th century when Democrats were socially conservative. That's why he's able to win in West Virginia. That's why he was oftentimes called a dino, a Democrat in name only. So Hutch saying like, how are you going to primary Manchin? You would effectively have to primary him with somebody who was even more Republican than Manchin already was. Running a more progressive person in West Virginia would effectively mean a loss. So that's why he's kind of like smirking to himself and being smug, is because Manchin is in a stronghold. He's effectively in a Republican stronghold, but he's popular enough domestically that he can still hold on to it. If you primary Manchin, you probably lose the seat. True Zealot for $5, thank you, says, also donating to Grease the Wheels to a religious combo. I offered to reach out to creators in your Discord if you want to check your ideas channel. Yeah. So this was a community effort. Somebody reached out to me about it, just that they wanted us to be more proactive about doing collabs. I think it can be off-putting for some creators to receive DMs from fans asking for collabs on another person's behalf. It's like, well, if this person cared about collaborations, why wouldn't they reach out to me myself? But that's why I started taking this this list. I've already reached out to Soy Pill and Straight Array, but Soy Pill, I let it fall through the cracks. I'm going to reach out again. Vanguard, I think, would be good. Dev is friendly and ready to talk. We just haven't picked a date. And then I think Erudite and Young might take a little bit of finag. Sorry. Got something caught in my throat. I think Erudite and Jung might take a little bit of finagling, but I think that would be a phenomenal conversation. I don't think it would be a metric breaker. Like, we probably wouldn't have that many live viewers, but I think that as far as like actual substantive depth, it would be a fire conversation. Grassroots says, it'd be wrong to give more money to WIC than you. I couldn't sleep last night. I was sweating and shaking and everything. It was awful. Grassroots was wailing it on WIC TV last night because I wasn't live last night. So he was wailing WIC to piss off the commies on, to piss off Soy Pill. Well, Grassroots, thank you for your financially lucrative guilt. I appreciate your guilt. Thank you.
That Joe Biden, and this is all coming out from reporting, was engaged as he should have been on domestic fronts is now proving more and more to be untrue. It appears that it appears that he outsourced domestic policy to Ron Klain. He had minimal meetings with his cabinet.
He didn't even do cabinet meetings. I was about to say that.
And so it's a systemic problem of Biden in terms of his failures as a communicator and his failure of engagement on the domestic front. And that is unfortunately a legacy that I do think has contributed to the rise of Trump. That's not to say, and I don't want to denigrate the good domestic agenda that was done. I think the Vanguard, I think, is, what Biden did, he got tangible wins for the American people domestically in a way that other presidents didn't. I didn't hear you really to say that that's not true. I think you said it was like watered down. I think it's watered down because he was trying to build bridges where he could, but he did pass through some historic legislation. I think you guys would acknowledge that.
Oh,
but
100% he did. My problem is that he embraced bipartisanship in a way that was totally detrimental in a time when he should have been fighting. I feel like what people
he embraced it when he had to. He didn't, it was a divided government when he was doing bipartisan stuff. He had to do bipartisan stuff. What other choice?
Guess what? The people said, we don't want you anymore. We want a guy that's going to go play hardball.
To be fair, I do think it was Joe Biden's age made it basically he was unreelectable. Like, I do feel he was so old, he was so in cognitive decline that like that ultimately had more to do.
Old School says he gave a $5 that I missed. Did I? Sorry, let me look. AKA Batasoy says, I agree with your policy takes, but think your judgment of people on the left and right is off by a long shot. Still very entertaining. I think we need more Eagle Scouts. Okay, so that was the most recent dono. Grassroots, True Zell, Old School, here we go. Oh, no. I read it in my mind. I might not have read it out loud. Old School says $5 for you to bully Soy Pill guys if you debate him again. He's not interested in bringing the country together. He just wants to hate Republicans. Yeah, sorry. And this goes back to Eric Dom, too. Eric asked if I added Malcolm and Simone Collins. I added it. Sometimes you guys aren't going to see me operating because I'm trying to get through the content as well, I love just talking to chat, but I don't just want to exclusively talk to chat. I also want to make content. Yeah, I added Soy Pill to the list, Old School. So actually I put Soy Pill at the top because we already agreed to a debate or a collaboration. And I think that since we've actually been on a panel together easily, that should be a simple follow-up DM. So I'm sorry for not reading your chat out loud, but I did see it and I did write down the name. And then Eric Dom as well. I did see you mention Malcolm and Simone Collins, and I did write them down as well. So my apologies, Old School. My apologies. Not on purpose, I promise. LB says, check out James Talarico. Religious Progress. He's still a pastor with progressive policies. You'd like him? Okay, interesting. All right, back to it.
With the way people voted for him than like the Joe Manchin thing, to be totally fair to Joe Biden. And I also think that if Joe Biden had been a younger version of himself, he would have been able to better communicate the wins that he did secure, because that was another huge thing. The communications department in the last administration was just pathetic. They didn't brag about anything that they accomplished. Most people didn't even know what the they accomplished, even though
it's true. Like, I'm involved in, political commentary, and the things that the Biden admin accomplished were so mundane and kind of like ephemeral that even though they're big wins, they didn't really celebrate their wins that much, and the media didn't pay attention to them. CHIPS Act should be huge, right? The attempt to reshore and subsidize chips manufacturing in the US is a big deal. The American Rescue Plan, while I think that it was probably inflationary, I think that Trump would have done the same thing. So I don't blame I don't blame Biden for the inflation. I think it was just going to be the result of COVID-related economic implosion tied with whatever you call it, like fiscal subsidy or whatever you call it. I forget what you call it. Well, the whole point is that like he did do some cool things, but he didn't crow about it at all, so nobody cared. And since nobody cared, it was viewed as Biden was an anemic president, and Biden had an anemic presidency, and the economy was in an anemic place, so he just got stomped out. And he stayed too long in the race. They should have swapped him out earlier, I think, obviously, in retrospect. Eric Dobb says, yeah, I can always tell them eccentric, but absolutely crazy. Yeah, Malcolm and Simone Collins, they should be fun. AKA Batasui says, Sitch, Wick, and Connor have in common, we're Boy Scouts. Oh, that actually explains a little bit, huh? Big in Gaming says, in 2020, the Republican candidate, she won 70% of the vote. Who? Kristen Sinema? Jim Justice, Manchin. Okay, hold on. This is important. Jim Justice, the Republican, won 68.75% of the vote, filling Manchin's seat. Last time Manchin won, he got 49% of the vote compared to 45 for the Republican. Well, yeah. So Biggin, that was the threat, right? If you try to primary Manchin, it's not going to work. The only way you can outflank Manchin is from the right. So I mean that's been proven. If you're saying 70% of West Virginia went for a Republican candidate, yeah, that's just proving Hutch's point. Christian Blair's for another 20. Thank you, King. Had to step away for a quick meeting. I'm a Destiny fan, lol. I love incentivizing unhinged behavior. Perfect. I'll try to yell at Steven some more.
So, as you mentioned a couple times accurately, they accomplished more than previous administrations had.
I fully agree with your. So, like, what's going on right now with the Democratic Party is they are just fully in terms of acclimating to this new paradigm of media. They don't understand the climate whatsoever. And so Biden did go out there and like visit like small cities in Michigan and Pennsylvania to celebrate, you know, the impact of the infrastructure deal. But who the fuck was there? It was like C-SPAN with like 17 viewers. Nobody was tweeting about it. Nobody was talking
media,
about it.
and that's half the job now.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with all of this. I agree with all of this.
Right. And I think you agree with this part. And so that's why I'm glad, because I think that's part of what's being spoken about from the Vanguard is the communication part is 50% of the, more than 50% of the job now, both internal communications, that is to your other stakeholders within government, other branches of government, that's to Joe Manchin. And he was able to negotiate, but it was delayed, right? The Inflation Reduction Act, and also externally, right? And getting public support for ideas, getting pressure, right? MAGA is able to, or Trump at times, I think less so now, is able to leverage this like momentum, right? And you often feel it, right? Like you get this report, and a lot of it's theater for sure, but
even
sometimes
before
it's genuine.
Trump. Even before Trump, remember the Rhino label? Like Republicans have always been better at shaming their fucking defectors.
Dude, I wanted to call this channel the Rhino for a little bit. I wanted to, basically like, I would love, in my heart of hearts, if I could get like a multi-millionaire sponsor, the way that Charlie Kirk got a multi-millionaire sponsor through the Koch brothers. I would build the Rhino branch of the Republicans, and I would use a rhinoceros for the symbol. I would embrace the Republican and name only insult, and I would change it to Republicans who hate isolationism, ethno-nationalism, small letter E, capital N, and identity obsession. And, you know, I would be lowercase, and then obsession would be capital O. Because effectively, like, when I think about the problems with the Republican Party, that's what it is. Isolationism, we're fucking over our geopolitical partners. That's like one of my major critiques of Trump and MAGA right now. When we're talking about ethno-nationalism, there are racist pieces of shit who are a part of the Republican Party, and it's an antithetical to the big tent, you know, philosophy of previous generations. Then when it comes to identity obsession, I think that the way that I would thread that needle is I would say, do you need to believe in, you know, can you have a biblical understanding of homosexuality and transsexuality and not really like that people are gay and trans? Sure. But should you be spending all of your political and social capital to bully the fuck out of gay and trans people with whom you disagree? Absolutely not. And should gay and trans people be comfortable within the Republican Party because they can have aligned interest on other policies? 100%. So if there was a multimillionaire who wanted to back a rhino wing of the party to fight the MAGA wing of the party, I would head it. I would fight for it. I would be one of its chief speakers. I would try to be its chief champion. And I would love to take the fight to the right, 100%. Just Carpet 563 says, you and Erudite made some strong points in the Destiny debate. It just sounds like Destiny can't admit his own mistakes. He could be such a major asset because he's so smart and actually reads, but he refuses to get out of his own way. Yeah, and I think it's an independence thing too. I think that Steven doesn't want to be controlled by anybody. And so even if you give him good feedback, unless it's his idea, he's going to tell you to fuck off. Yep. Old School says, I like Wick. He's actually interested in cross-tribal political combos, and he shows respect. I don't understand the hate he gets. There's a bunch of drama people who hate Wick, but they just hate Wick because they think that he can't sustain a channel based off of the income he currently has. And that's the only criticism they really have. I actually think that Wick is an asset to the space, an extreme asset to the space.
As Democrats, like, you never saw Joe Biden taunting Joe Manchin and saying, this guy, he's a dino, he's a traitor, he's helping Donald Trump, he's a secret Republican.
Old School says, would I combine it with 40K symbolism? No, I wouldn't.
Who's a wolf in sheep's clothing. That's what he should have said, not just because it's good politics, but because it's true. Joe Manchin is a piece of shit.
Wait, hold on. You have not.
Grassroots says, if I had a millionaire donor and I'm choplifter, okay, I see how it is, Dick. Okay, Grassroots, do you want to take your millions of dollars and start a right-wing moderate party? I mean, I'll take it. That, like, Grassroots, if you want to liquidate all of your assets and you want to dump it into a political party with no guarantee of return on investment, I'm not going to stop you. Like, we'll do it, brother. But you have to understand that politics is effectively dumping money into a bucket with a hole in the bottom. The reason why this is sustainable is because it's combined with entertainment. But actually doing canvassing events and talking to people and raising awareness and voter drives and disaster relief and all that bullshit, you're not getting an ROI on that. You're sending that money out and it's never coming back in. So Grassroots, I would never presume to liquidate your millionaire status in order to pursue some pet political project. But if you want to, like I said, I'm down.
Not reconciled the obvious problem with this. Let's say he does that. Let's say you're a dino. I'm going to primary. I'm going to mom. And he says, I don't like your posture. You have no leverage over me. I'm going to be independent and you
imprison him.
True. That's exactly what would have happened too, by the way. I mean, Manchin might have some affinity with the Democrat label, so he might have stayed Democrat. However, Hutch is just fundamentally correct that the leverage that the Vanguard boys think they have, they just don't have.
I'm just kidding.
No, I'm serious. Like, how do you reconcile with that?
100%. Yeah, I think that's a very fair point. That's why Pisco and I shared the moment where we agreed that, hey, this is an 8-year project, right? When you're battling a Congress that is 100% against the American people, like Joe Manchin, like Christian Sinema, right? You can't accomplish the goals. The American people just voted, and we're operating under the time Joe Biden's just getting into office, right? Okay. They voted for him to be an antidote to Donald Trump. They're scared because of COVID. They want somebody who's competent. They want, vaccine rollout that's sufficient, right? They want all of these things. That's what he's been voted on. So you have to say, this man is standing in the way of what I want to accomplish. If you want a higher minimum wage, we need to know that this man is standing in the way of it. You make him a pariah. You make his name mud in Washington. And in the meantime, you do not pass that piece of pivotal legislation. You go to town with every single executive order that comes across your desk. You make that man's life hell, and you also go to work uplifting the American people. You declare a state of emergency. You talk about how healthcare is a human right. You talk about how we're going to do everything.
Yeah, this is cringe. You would evaporate what political support you had. This whole thing, and LB is obviously a part of it. This whole thing that, the political moment is so fraught and we're losing anyways. So let's yank everything further left, I think is going to make it worse. I think you're going to alienate vast swaths of your own base. I think you're going to empower MAGA to be even more relevant than it already is. You guys keep saying that you can't win with moderates. Biden won in 20. You're fucking wrong. The reason why Kamala lost is because they ran a uniquely bad campaign. Okay, so just this whole thing, like moderates always lose. Why was Joe Manchin winning in West Virginia? Not that he's a moderate. I'm actually pretty sure he's like a blue dog Democrat. But why did Joe Manchin win? Right? It's bullshit. That's bullshit. There's not one specific political tribe that is going to win in every single district in the United States. It's just not true. And I think at the general level, you have to win the moderates. If you lose the moderates, you lose the election. So what was it? It was like 5 million people didn't show up compared from 2020 to 24. So anyways, Old School says, Connor, talk to Elon. He now hates Trump. Just assure him you'll make sure the government doesn't interfere with his Mars project. Yeah, I'll pay for his Mars project. I would, dude, the America Party. If I swear to God, if I had somebody that I could reach Elon Musk through, if the America Party was going to be a Republican, a party that emerged out of the Republican Party, it was going to be technocratic, pro-capitalist, pro-efficiency, pro-gun, pro-freedom of conscience, and pro-entrepreneurialism and pro-space exploration, I would be its biggest fucking champion. Now, I think Elon's an asshole for what he did with Doge, but, you know, what's 14 million dead people amongst friends? You know? Anyways.
Every single thing you can. We're going to make sure that nobody pays a cent of student loans as long as I'm president, right? We're going to make sure that we fight it in the court and not a dollar is collected, and we fight all the insurance or the interest rates all the way. We go after everything.
Yeah, conservatism exactly sums it up. The whole argument is that Democrats need to go back to their roots, which is valid. Joe Manchin appealed to working class voters and didn't hate guns. I don't think it's mission impossible. Do you know how easy it would be for Democrats to not be cringe about guns and then to be more chill than they are assholes about progressive issues? Do you know how easy that is? Do you know how much of the moderate base you would win with that? It's fucking crazy.
That we could do with worker protection to make sure that
and sorry, conservatism says Vanguard said Bernie is popular in West Virginia. I'm sure he is, but that's because Bernie Sanders has a lot of working class populist rhetoric. He is Bernie Sanders is disproportionately popular with the working class, 100%.
that it's harder to exploit your workforce. Let's make sure that we're supplementing every single court that we can along the way to make sure that a company like Uber doesn't get to contract their drivers as a 1099 employee that has to pay a bunch of taxes at the end of the year and gets totally ratted. Let's make sure that we're uplifting those people at every step of the way. I think these are ideas that we would all agree are going to be beneficial and tangible to the American people. And then over your 8-year presidency, you do start to accomplish the goals that you need the power of Congress to do, right? Because nobody can just, you know, overrule Congress, although Donald Trump is giving it a run for his fucking money.
Yeah, Possum Nation. Yeah, this is evil. Fundamentally evil. Connor, on Tuesday, 12,000 Afghan evacuees will be stripped of legal status, and the place they were housed, Camp Atterbury, will be a detention camp, sending them back to Afghanistan. That's fucking evil. It's fucking evil. Amongst those Afghans, there's 100% people who were sympathetic and worked with the United States government, and the fact that they were evacuated in the first place is going to be viewed as being a traitor to the Taliban government, and the Taliban government will go through the evacuees. They will find the people who actually helped the United States and they will execute them. They might televise it, they might not, but they will kill the people who betrayed the Taliban government. That's so laughably fucking evil that I don't even know what to do about it. Like I can barely get angry because it's so fucked up. I can barely see straight.
Money right now, and he even has control of Congress, right? So you say we're going to do every single thing that we can from the power of the desk. We're going to fight everything in the court, and we're going to make your life as good as we can while we get rid of Joe Manchin, Christian Sinema, and bring back the party of the people.
Okay, so let's game this out. So it's ARP negotiations. It's the first 2 months of the presidency. This is his first bill that he wants to get passed. He does exactly what you're saying right now. He goes to war with Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin defects. He loses control of Congress. Now,
why would you
you're
lose control
suggesting
of Congress? You're just stacking the deck in your favor.
No, no, hold
What
on.
if he gets
I just told you that there would be a risk that Joe Manchin would defect and say, I don't like the way you're treating me. I'm going to defect. There was
because of all the
absolutely
And then boom, you have a dead presidency for the rest of the term. Like that's what I'm saying, guys. The Vanguard have a point here, but it's misapplied. And the point is the executive branch of the Democratic Party needs to be, when they're in power, they need to be more vital and virile, like Obama, right? They need to be using the bully puppet. They need to be organizing their base. They need to be building coalitions. They need to be pushing for their agenda hyper aggressively. Now, what Hutch is saying is that Biden did that. He was just an very poor communicator in the modern digital media landscape. And also, he was kind of a weak president leading up to 2024 in reference to his health and his well-being. I don't even know if Hutch would admit that. But yeah, like, it's actually quite easy. But Hutch is going to perpetually win that if you had individually attacked Manchin, you would have fucked yourself. He has a pair of aces. Hutch just wins this conversation.
absolutely a risk of him doing that, by the way.
President we have.
So,
See, we can play this counterfactual game all day.
Are you acknowledging or not that there was a risk for him to defect in that way if Trump?
Yes, but you're
if-
assuming
block
that after that
everything,
defection,
wait,
Donald,
so-
or that
hang on,
that Joe
hang on.
Biden loses Congress. I disagree with that. That's what
if
I'm
you-
disputing.
If you give that Senate gavel, do they have
Whatever 4690 says, Connor does this shit all the time. Other countries do this shit all the time. Okay. Well, when somebody helps me when I'm trying to do something, and then they risk their life to help me do something, I don't think that it's humane or sane or reciprocal to put that person to death through incompetence. You know, I know that's like it was a crazy take here. Somebody risks their life to help me, and then I kill them. I know that's like a crazy take in the dissident right, but you know, I think that's bad. I think killing the people who help us is bad.
a gavel in the Senate? If you give that gavel to Mitch McConnell, now not only do you not get the IRA, which did a lot of really good shit, and not just for
Yeah, but
environment,
you're
but
stacking the
also
deck
for
in your favor,
wait,
Hutch.
hold on,
You're
hold
just
on.
saying, imagine all these
You're-
bad things happen. I could say, imagine all these good things happen because I did all these executive orders.
Do you not? Okay, hang on.
Executive orders can be repealed by the very next branch. That's a problem with executive orders. That's the problem, by the way, with Obama doing a bunch of executive orders, was the fact that Trump came in and reversed all those executive orders and hurt a fuckload of people. And now we just have this norm where the president just does whatever the fuck he wants via executive order. It's a bad precedent. This is how republics die.
Podcast.
I
Bros.
guess. Hutch,
Hold on,
can I
wait,
just
hold on.
break
I
in
wanna
real
ask-
quick?
I need to not feel crazy for a second. Podcast bros, do you think it was possible that if Biden would have done what they're suggesting that he should have done, that Manchin could have
No,
switched
he couldn't
parties?
have done
Or,
it. He didn't have the talent. Biden, it was too old. He couldn't do it. So this whole thing is, I agree with you, Hutch, in the sense that he couldn't do it. He did not have the capacity to do it. And Manchin, although I don't know that Manchin would be the
All right, they're still arguing the same shit, and we're hitting 5 hours, so I'm gonna wrap it up. I'm gonna thank the fuck out of everybody for this, but I'm also gonna argue with whatever in chat real quick. And Afghans in European countries go on the top charts and rape and try to push and recreate Afghanistan in Europe. Punish them. Whatever 4690. You're not going to find whatever hug a thug progressive bullshit rhetoric that you thought you were going to find in this chat. I'm not going to say rapists and murderers from Afghanistan have carte blanche to do whatever they want in the West because they helped us during the Afghan war. I'm going to say if somebody is a rapist or a murderer, if somebody is an economic migrant, kick them back. I don't give a shit. You don't have a right to travel the world. However, if there's somebody who helped us or they're a refugee with a credible threat of death or great bodily harm to themselves or their family, then we can evaluate them on a case-by-case basis. And if a migrant or a asylee or a refugee or somebody who is a translator who helped us out, if they commit a crime, punish them to the furthest extent of the law. I'm not soft on people just because they're brown. I'm not soft on people just because they're black. We can understand that you had a fucked up upbringing and also still punish you for your bad behavior. These are not mutually contradictory ideas. Anonymous chatter says, whatever 4690, exactly how does shipping 12,000 Afghans who were traitors to the Taliban to help the United States in a war back to Afghanistan put America first? Who will trust us after this? No one. And nobody should trust. Number one, nobody should trust the United States because we've backstabbed the Kurds a few times, and we've backstabbed, these Afghans. So realistically, nobody should really trust us. However, nobody should trust MAGA at all. All right. Parasocial love. Have a great one. Blowing you a kiss. You don't have to accept it if you don't want to. I'm going to see you guys later. Bye for now.